Imagine speaking to your sister for the first time in 7 years. Things were different back then. Now she's a convicted murderer, and you're testifying against her in trial for a different case, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Adam Cox took the stand today, and he's cross-examined by Vallow Daybell, who's representing herself. Siblings in the courtroom discussing what happened before and after the shooting of Charles Vallow. I'm Justin Lum, and we are on the record. Fox 10 Investigator Justin Lum here with Special Projects EP George Obie, and we are still processing the day that was here, day 4 of the Vallow Daybell trial, wrapping up the week. And what a day it was, because first off, we started with brother and sister in court facing each other, Adam Cox taking the stand, and he had to remain calm, cool, and collected for a cross-examination. And it was just interesting to see the siblings speak to each other for the first time in 7 years.
Yeah, surprising that her line of questioning was just that, to establish for the jury that, you know, this is my brother, but he and I have not spoken in a very long time. And so trying to create the separation, maybe to damper whatever the state would have questioned him and got him to answer on the stand.
Yeah, the strategy being that, we're not that close. And then her trying to nail it down that, ever since that time frame of 2018, 2019, whatever it was, we haven't really talked to each other, but we saw each other at family gatherings. Maybe there were some phone calls, but really, you don't know me. But in the direct exam by Trina Kay, the prosecutor for the county attorney's office, she gets Adam to explain that they stopped speaking. And it wasn't his issue. It was Lori that didn't want to talk to him anymore. After she had brought up her beliefs, she had allegedly said she was a celestial being, and that she had more priesthood than the priesthood. And then it gets into all of the Church of Jesus Christ, LDS elements. And he said, I'm not saying you're crazy, but I don't believe you. What you're saying is not true.
Right. And Adam, like a lot of the family, a devout member of the LDS Church. So he had a lot of knowledge about their faith and how that was involved in their upbringing. He even brought up on the stand that, look, he saw what others in that circle were seeing, is that she was taking things farther than most do. She was at the temple
5 times a week.
Yeah, which is, he said, not normal. There was talk of the intervention. There was, Charles was communicating with him and others that, look, this is not healthy, and we all as a family need to do something for her.
It's a very small circle, probably between Charles, Adam, and Brandon Boudreaux about what needed to be done, because as you guys will see in the next trial, Brandon Boudreaux had the same issues, according to him, about his then wife, Melanie Boudreaux, who would go to temple with Vallow Daybell. That was her aunt that she looked up to. And so this whole religious aspect, we got an inside look at that today. And then Adam, testifies to Lori saying that Charles wasn't alive anymore. And this takes us into the door of, Charles being possessed by Ned Schneider, being a dark spirit. And so Adam has a lot to say, but Lori tries to discredit him by saying, you haven't been a part of my life in a long, long time. But Adam was close to Charles, and the last person to text him and say, Alex and Lori are planning something. I don't think that he predicted at all that he would be shot and killed minutes later. And how he finds out is through a friend that he's visiting in Arizona, through Google, that, oh, your brother-in-law has been shot and killed by his brother-in-law.
It's important to note, in the last 2 days, we've had 2 people, Nancy Joe and now Lori's brother, both describing Charles' mindset and demeanor the night before he got shot and killed, right? You had Nancy Joe. They went out on a date with Charles the night before. You have Adam texting Charles the day before. So now the state has tried to get into the mind of Charles from 2 people, the last 2 people in theory, who spoke to him.
The state is presenting that Charles is not the villain that maybe Vallow Daybell is making him to be. And Lori keeps bringing up his bad relationship with Tylee. She keeps bringing that up, and that Charles was actually trying to help Lori. Adam talks about not just the intervention, but the intervention could bring out possible recordings of her saying these things, these strange beliefs, so that they could take it to the stake president in the LDS community and to basically, you know, take away her temple recommendation. We talked about this with Mel McDonald, who's a member, and it's very complicated to me because I'm not, familiar with this, but basically that would like destroy her life purpose if something like that happened. But Charles did not know what to do.
He didn't know what to do, and he's to his credit, I guess, he's reaching out to the people who are close to Lori, like he is, and saying, look, what can we do? This is, and they probably went through a number of ideas, but that, I guess people watching could think that's a mark of a good husband, right? You have a wife, you clearly think that, look, she's going off the deep end. How do we bring her back? We know how important the religion was to her. We know how important her faith was to her, how important it was to Charles and everybody else in the family. But then you have somebody who, again, is going down without, no pun intended, going down a dark path of her own. And, nobody could have imagined it would lead to this. But as you're going to see as this trial goes on, Charles had a premonition somewhere, somehow, that this was going to end badly. Yeah,
and so Lori Vallow Daybell gets her chance to cross-examine her brother Adam, and she even brings up, how they weren't close and says, do you remember eating my famous green chili chicken enchiladas? Maybe they weren't famous, but she said, do you remember, we were eating that at a family gathering? And so, anyways, it gets weird, but at the end, she finishes with this. Let's take a listen.
Mr. Cox, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with my brother Alex Cox to murder my husband Charles Vallow?
Repeat that again.
Okay. Did you see with your eyes or hear with your ears or personally witness me conspire with my brother Alex Cox to murder my husband Charles Vallow?
No.
Thank you. No more questions.
So this question of, did you actually see me conspire with my brother Alex to kill Charles Vallow? Yeah, Adam wasn't even speaking to her really at the time. He was in contact with Alex because he's supposed to stay with him. But what could she think she's going to get out of that question of actually anyone seeing her conspire?
I think as our panelist, Kirk Nunnery, was on earlier, as he suggested, there is a moment for, I think, defense attorneys, even prosecutors, right, in a trial, a gotcha moment. The last question, the bang question that you present to a witness that is supposed to hit the jury hard, this is hers. Yeah. And this is new. Right, because this is kind of thing. I'm sure that her paralegal has helped her kind of establish this, but this is her zinger that she hopes is her zinger, because we've heard this before, and that is, again, the question I think the state has to prove is, did Lori conspire with her brother to kill Charles? So why not ask that of all of the witnesses, more so the personal witnesses, the people who knew both of them? We wonder whether that's hitting the jury hard. Yeah. I guess we'll find out in the verdict. But again, that's her gotcha moment.
And then she asked it again. This was the first time that she asked the witness this, and she will use this again as trying to get that knockout punch. But Trina Kay, of course, she's going to go on redirect, and she's going to ask Adam Cox about this alleged conspiracy. Here's how that went down.
When you were talking to your family after this happened, did you actually tell them that you believed that Lori and Alex had conspired to kill Charles?
Yes.
Why was that?
Because Lori had told people that Charles was no longer living, that some guy named Ned was inside of his body, that there was a zombie living inside of him. And Alex didn't respond to any of my text messages when I was supposed to be with him. And he was at that house that morning. Lori talking crazy about how she's a translated being. All these things all added up into that moment and that morning. Once I found out on Saturday that Charles was shot and killed, no doubt on my mind that they killed him.
Adam gets out of there pretty much unscathed. We can agree he handled himself well. And so that testimony lasted for most of the morning. And then Trina Kay would bring on Serena Sharp, former friend of Lori's who had been on the group meetings and girls' weekends with the gang, Lori, Melanie Gibbs, Ulema Pastenes, and she had heard a lot, she says, about dark spirits and castings and just what Lori believed. And I think this was important for the jury to see that Lori, even though she was this devout member of the LDS Church, she didn't believe she had to repent for anything. She didn't have to repent for her sins.
Yeah, she didn't have to repent. There was some talk about zombies and
zombie talk for sure.
This is, I think, important for the jury to hear. I think you would agree that this is the religious part that may seem normal to some in that circle, but this is setting up the fact that the faith in that religion is starting to take a darker turn. We've heard from several other witnesses in that little circle that they could even see what she was saying, what Lori was implying about Charles was probably a little too far even for them.
Mm-hmm. And we had 5 witnesses today. So what we're going to fast forward to really the star witness of this trial thus far. And we all stood up when we were ready for this. Kay Woodcock, Charles Vallow's sister, taking the stand and taking everyone through the timeline of the marital issues and how Lori had basically gone MIA for 58 days, J.J. Vallow's well-being, the move between Houston, Texas, back to Chandler, Arizona, and then basically the lack of information they got the day of July 11, 2019, and onward, leading to everything we know in this terrible case in Idaho. So Kay Woodcock, I was just waiting to see how she would react to Lori's questioning. And I guess we'll fast forward there. There was really no cross-examination at all. No. There was 3 questions.
I think it lasted all of about 2.5 minutes. You can probably take more from the cross with Kay's body language than you can her answers. Yeah. I think if you just watch how Kay sat in the witness box and kind of how she acted in her demeanor, you could probably pull more from that than you did the actual testimony.
Yeah, she's been waiting for this moment for a long time. She's been testifying in 2 trials, and now this is her 3rd trial as a key witness, because in the first 2 trials, she is the biological grandmother of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow, who was murdered by Lori Vallow and her husband, Chad Daybell. And so going through all of that trauma, but it all starts here. She was there for Charles when he was going through these problems, trying to get Lori help. She knew, but of course, another person who would not be able to predict that it would lead to a fatal shooting and that Alex would be involved in it. Alex is now dead. And so there's so much that's happening for Kay to come full circle to this and face Lori head on. And really, I bet she's wondering, that's all you asked me? 3 questions?
And I asked you too. I said, how long has it been since she's talked to Lori one-on-one like this? I think we said 8 years, 8 years.
You go back to 2019 because Charles dies July 2019, and they're planning a funeral, and then Lori FedExes his cremated remains. I mean, can you believe that? FedExes the cremated remains. She's not part of her husband's funeral, even if they were going through problems, right? And they were estranged. Kay handles everything, wants JJ at the funeral, and that can't happen, and she can't get in touch with JJ. So really the last time she's in communication with her is in the August time frame before Lori moves the kids to Idaho, and Lori has found out that she's not the beneficiary of a $1 million life insurance policy, and she's angry about that and sends a very snarky text message to Kay about 5 kids and no money, and and Kay's like, well, I don't even care about the money. The real reason why Charles changed her to be the beneficiary is because Charles told Banner Life that someone had hacked into his account, and he believed that it was Lori, and he was getting the threats already, according to him, back in January.
Right.
So the whole footprint is there.
Yeah.
And Kay finds out through her nephew, Charles' son Cole, my dad's dead, and they're not getting information from Lori. And I rarely see Kay get emotional, but take a look at this as Kay Woodcock is on the stand.
How did you learn that your brother Charles was dead?
It was on July the 12th. I was at a nail salon in Lake Charles, my granddaughter and I, and I got a call from his oldest son, Cole, And he said, "Hey, what is going on? I just got a text from Lori, and she said Dad's dead." And I said, wait, what did you just say? And he told me again, and I said, something's wrong with that. That can't be true. And I said, have you tried to call her? And Cole's like, yeah, she won't. I'm trying calling. She's not answering. He was freaking out, and I was like, okay, Cole, just give me a minute. Let me think about this. Let me see, and I'll call you back. I promise. As soon as I can figure this out. So I called my husband to tell him, and he said, okay, well, I told him that what the Cole said, and he said, hey, let me call you back in a minute. And so I was still at the nail salon trying to get out of there, and he called and he said, he's dead. I Googled him, and he's dead. Alex killed him yesterday. And I mean, that was just like, it was horrible. I have to call my siblings and let them know. Thank you. And everybody was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. But I did call Cole back and let him know.
And again, just watching Trina Kay, bring up the tissues, you can tell when things are genuine or not, but Kay does not get emotional. And I think this all flooded back to her being the sibling that had to take care of everyone and not have the answers. And at the time, she says Lori was too busy to answer questions about Charles.
Well, and if you're talking about motive, right, and maybe an ulterior motive, I think Kay is probably processing that as she's talking on the stand. Again, they all relive this, right? You're there, but you're also understanding that it's important for the jury, I think, to understand. I think Kay knows this too, that they need to hear just how callous this whole thing was and how Lori acted. I would say that, and you know Kay better than I do, obviously, having been in Idaho for the last two trials.
Yeah, a lot of interviews.
Yeah, even Larry. I mean, look, Larry's the same way. He got emotional, right? I mean, he got emotional outside the court on several occasions. I think it's just a natural reaction. I think Kay may have been holding back. We know how emotional she was in Lori's trial in Idaho, but I think now it's important, and we see that Kay just being herself now. This is who she is, and what Charles meant to her. I know it's difficult. It's going to be difficult for anybody, but this is, I think, at the heart of who Kay is as a person. And I think it was important for the jury to hear that.
Yeah, I know that when you put it like that, for a long time she's been trying to get justice for her brother, but I think the priority at the time, at the beginning of the saga, is where the kids, right, and her grandson, her baby, right, like her baby boy, in a way. So I think that was key, and now she's like, wow, I'm here full circle, and I'm almost in. I really just want to be done with this and move on with my life. So yeah, what a draining day in the courtroom, and the family members that were in there. We talked to Rex Connor earlier. Colby Ryan was in the courtroom watching his mom represent herself. Megan Connor's been there all week and through the jury selection as well. People have been affected by this, as we know, and we will be talking to those people throughout this trial. That is the hope, to really bring you as close as we can to the courtroom in this case. But court is going to be back on Monday early at 10 a.m. So other than that, I think the jury is left with a lot to chew on through this 3-day weekend. And then some of the stuff they're hearing for the first time about people being zombies and dark spirits and life insurance. I think the story is coming together for the state as far as motive. And that's not necessarily a challenge. What their job is hard, but there's mounds and mounds of evidence.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the crux of again, like you said, text messages and all of the religious undertones and all of that. But what a way to end the first week, right? The first week of the trial. You end with probably the star witness, the most emotional part of it. Now the jury goes home for 3 days, sits on that. Now they'll come back. I think for the state anyway, I don't think it could have ended any better for them. But yes, we'll start again on Monday, and the jury will kind of have to soak what we just got all week and what we got today, and then start anew on Monday as we get into really the meat of the conspiracy part.
Get more of law enforcement, because all the civilian witnesses are done now. 5 of them have testified. So we will be ready for that. Thank you all for joining the conversation. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. We'll see you next time on The Record.